Hello everyone. In this session, we want to take a look at configuring health policies for network access protection. And health policies define which system health validator is evaluated, as well as how that system health validator is used to evaluate the health status of network access protection client computers. Health policies classify the health status of the client computer. Now we're looking here at the configuration window where we create the health policy, and we have a number of SHVs checks that we can select. There are 7 of them in all. And we also need to select the SHV used in the particular health policy, and we select it in the window. You can have more than one. There's the default window security health validator that we had looked at previously, and we can have other security health validators. Right now, we want to look at those SHV checks and see what each one of those checks will do for the client computer if they are chosen or enabled. An SHV check is an evaluation of the client computer against all requirements of the SHV. For example, the Windows SHV can check client computers for multiple software requirements and settings. A client computer needs to meet all the requirements of the SHV to pass the SHV check. The first check that we want to look at here is the one that says client passes all SHV checks. We would want to use this setting to create a health policy that requires the client computer to meet the requirements of all enabled SHVs. And this is the most restrictive setting that you can use to evaluate compliant computers. Next, we have client fails all SHV checks. And you would want to choose this one if you wanted to create a health policy that requires the client computer to fail to meet requirements of all the enabled SHVs. And this one is the least restrictive setting that you can use to evaluate non-compliant computers. A third SHV check is client passes one or more SHV checks. For this one, we would want to use this one to create a health policy that requires a client computer to meet the requirements of at least one enabled SHV. And this is the least restrictive setting that you can use to evaluate compliant computers. The next one we want to look at is client fails one or more SHV checks. And this particular setting we'd want to use to create a health policy that requires a client computer to fail to meet requirements of at least one enabled SHV. And this one is the most restrictive setting that you can use to evaluate non-compliant computers. Then we have client reported as transitional by one or more SHV. And this one, if you choose this one, what this one will really say is that the client computer does not have the required services to actually push that report health status. So it's actually indicating that the services on the client computer are not ready to report the health status. And this can be a temporary state. It might be that, for example, the service has been recently started up and it's not finished completing all of the startup options. So it could be temporary. Another option that we have to choose from the SHV checks is clients reported as infected by one or more SHVs. And this is when the check is done and you find out that there is a virus on your computer, malware on the computer, and the antivirus program for the SHV is not able to fix that antivirus problem. That is when we report it as infected. You also have the last option, and this one says the client reported as unknown by one or more SHVs. And this is when the check cannot determine whether or not your credentials are listed within the network. So it gives it an unknown state. And again, that can be temporary. So those are the 7 checks that you can choose when you are creating that health policy. Let's take a look and see how we configure the health policy. We're going to click on Tools, Network Policy Server, and then Expand Policies. Right click on Health Policy and click on New. We need to type the name of the policy. This is the first thing that we're going to do here. And we're going to call the policy Health Pol. Then we want to choose one of those SHV checks that we talked about. So you want to click the down arrow and you have a list of them. You select the one that you want. We're going to select the first one. And then we need to select the SHV used in the health policy. And this is the default one. Of course, you can have other SHVs, but we have the default one and that's the one we're going to check off. And you want to go ahead and click on OK. So that's your health policy in a nutshell. You just make sure that you choose a check, SHV check, that you want the policy to have, and you choose the SHV with all the settings that you want for that health policy. Remember that those policies that you set will be checked against the computer to make sure that that client computer is compliant to whatever policy you have set for your network access protection policy. This is the end of our session on health policies, and I want to thank you for listening.